Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Rainmakers Roundup. I'm your host, Mark Iorio, and today I've got the pleasure of introducing again for the second time Brigadier General retired John DiNapoli, President and CEO of Spencer Ryan. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Mark. It's
Happy
good to be here.
Veterans Day.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. 35 years of military service. Thank you.
Just under 35.
Just under
34 and a bit.
I saw a note about 35 years. I guess 34 and a bit. All right. So welcome back. Thanks for coming back on. We're going to talk about your book at some point, right, today.
Terrific.
Brand new book, 101 Leadership Ideas. Tell us a little bit about Spencer Ryan and what you're doing, and then how you're helping leaders lead.
Okay.
Yep.
I was lucky enough to have kind of two career tracks in the military and in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yep.
And as I got promoted to Brigadier General, I had worked for a few folks that I thought I could help them improve their leadership if they were interested in improving their leadership.
Yeah.
So about 9 years ago, I decided I was going to go out on my own and start a company to help people improve their leadership. And I worked with a couple of other folks that were doing that and learned some of the techniques they did in their training. So we do 2- and 3-day training seminars, mostly around leadership or management. So we call it managing one-on-one performance, the performance of leadership. And we try to develop ideas on how you lead better, right? And out of that has come a lot of coaching opportunities and some speaking opportunities. And I tried to put all those ideas together from what I've learned and what I've seen over the years and come up with some ideas to help people. Great book.
We talk about this a lot, and I really want to get the word out. In fact, I had a conversation about this morning. And people do not understand how you're trained in the military and how it prepares you for the world of business. I look at military leaders like you and others, John, cut above others, because you have this incredible training program to understand how to lead. And it's not, you tell us, but it's not what people think. It's not an autocratic society there, right?
It is not. And people tend to think, well, you're in the military, you just tell people to do stuff and they do it.
Yeah.
And I try to explain to people that there is a similarity and a difference between the military. The similarity is I can always get you to comply. If I'm in a leadership position or I have a title, I can tell you to do something and you're going to do it at some level.
Right.
And that's the same in the civilian world. The CEO comes in, the president comes in, tells you, I need you to do this. You'll do it at some level.
Yeah.
But the difference between doing it at the best level and doing it at some level is commitment. So in every leadership position, you're trying to get people to commit to where you're trying to get to.
Right.
The military, because the consequences are so severe if you do something stupid, has some severe penalties. So people do tend to comply much more quickly. But if you want commitment, you need leadership.
Yeah.
It doesn't just come along with the title or the position, and that's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? And people follow people that they trust, that they respect, that they know have their backs, and that they know care about them. Right? And that happens in all walks of life. So in the military, when you first go in, before you ever get a job, they send you to 6 months of training. And most of that is about leading, because you're going to be put in a position as a lieutenant, excuse me, where you're going to be leading people that are senior to you, that have been in the Army potentially for 20, 25 years, and you have to corral them and make sure that as a team, as a unit, you are doing the things that make you successful.
Yeah.
So they start with that type of training. Then they put you in an environment where you actually are leading very young folks all the way up to folks in their mid-40s, sometimes early 50s. 3 or 4 years later, they send you back to school again to a captain's career course, where you again learn some leadership techniques for larger units and how to lead leaders, because it's different, right?
Yep.
If you're leading people to do something versus leading leaders, that's something that you don't get exposure to.
Yeah.
I run into all the time where people say, we see where people get promoted, right? You're a salesperson or you're a marketer,
Yep.
and you're really good at it. And they say, well, you're really good at this. I'm going to give you 5 people, and you're going to manage them,
Yeah.
right? Well, they're not the same skill set.
Right.
No training, right?
Yeah.
If you know how to sell, you must know how to manage.
Sure.
Of course not.
Right.
And then, after 3 or 4 years of being a manager, they say, now we're going to put you in charge of managers. Well, you never managed managers. They're different.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
So the military recognizes that. And every step of the way, before you go into these larger opportunities to lead bigger units, bigger operations, brigades, divisions, they put you through another set of training that enable you to see the broader picture.
Mm-hmm. So in business, John, some of the bigger gaps that you're finding in the world of leadership is that some of these leaders, of people in leadership positions or leadership titles, are not really trained to lead, right? And you obviously help them.
Well, absolutely. And I think we've all been in positions where we've seen people that have been elevated because of their performance, and they should.
Yeah.
But they also should get some training.
Yeah.
I will often go into companies. We had a company we did some training with 2 years ago. Big company, multi-billion-dollar company.
Wow.
We trained 15 of their managers. To a person, they came back and said, we should have had this training 20 years ago. Now, these are people that have been managing for 20 years, never been put through any formal training process.
Yeah.
So I think it happens all the time, and it's penny wise and pound foolish. People don't understand that I'm paying these managers a really good salary for a reason, to
Yep.
manage. If I could get them to manage better or to lead better, my organization's going to do better,
Yeah.
right? So the small amount of outlay to get them trained or to pull them out of the field in order to get them trained is short-term pain, but the gains can be extensive.
Yeah. You said something a few minutes ago that's really pretty compelling. And, you know, when you think about it, people in the military, leaders in the military, when you don't do something according to the book, right, there are dire circumstances, dire consequences to that. In business, people don't see it that way. They don't see that if I don't lead this properly, I don't train my people properly, there's not dire consequences, but there are dire consequences to that.
There are dire consequences, and they could be everything from, in many respects, deadly, just like in the military. I mean, there are safety accidents when people are
Sure.
not led properly.
Yeah.
There are people that are doing things that down the road cause them to have, physical or mental issues. I mean, there's studies that have been done that show if you work for a manager you don't trust or respect, depression rates go up by 50%.
Yep.
I mean, that's not damaging?
Yeah.
I'd say that's pretty damaging,
It
right?
is, yeah.
So in the military, the clear problems are, we had a guy when I was in flight school that was doing some stupid things when I got in a unit, and we pulled his PI orders, his pilot in command orders, because he was doing stupid things. Well, a year later, he went back and got pilot in command orders, and he ended up crashing a Cobra with a brand new lieutenant on board, right? So if he had been led properly and people would have given him consequences and pulled him out of the cockpit and said, hey, if you do this again, you're not going to fly, he could have saved a life, right? So in the military, those consequences are immediate and severe.
Yeah.
So you get to see them.
Yeah.
If you go into battle and you do something stupid, your whole unit could suffer.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't see those as often in the civilian world, but companies fail all the time, and they fail very often because of lack of leadership, or you lose really good people because you don't have a good leader, or you don't have a good manager in charge.
Yeah. So you've been running Spencer Ryan for 9 years. You had a career in the pharmaceutical industry as well after when you retired from the military, right? So then you decide a couple years ago to write this book. What was the trigger mechanism to write the book? What caused that?
Yeah, so I am involved with a speakers association, the National Speakers Association, and I went and heard a speaker talking about innovation. And he had written a book, I think it was 66 ideas on innovation. He wrote it while he was with a big company, and the company let him take the rights to it. And he had said that that's an opportunity when he leaves a speech to leave behind the messages that he wants people to take away.
Yeah.
And it's a simple way to share those messages and make sure that they get broader use.
Right.
So as I left that, I thought that's a pretty interesting idea.
Sure.
And I could probably do that. So I just went home and started writing down some of the ideas that I thought are necessary to be a good leader.
Yeah.
People have said to me, well, which ones are the most important? And I always say, well, they're all important, right? I mean, the most important ones are probably the ones you're not doing,
right, exactly.
because you need to get better at those.
Right.
If you don't have any empathy, it doesn't matter about all the other stuff you do. I think it was Lou Holtz, right, who said, I don't care what you know until I know how much you care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So until you figure out all of those things, none of them are important, right?
Yeah.
You have to do them all for people to follow you.
Yeah. So what you've done here, 101 leadership ideas. This is on Amazon, so I want you to take a look at that.
And Barnes & Noble.
And
We're
Barnes &
not
Noble. Okay. Let's not diss Barnes & Noble.
Exactly.
So what you did here in the table of contents is, and we do have a picture of the book, the front page of the book that we could show on the screen. But this is cool because every single one of these leadership ideas is 2 pages. That's all it is, right?
That's it.
And it's in alphabetical order. It doesn't get any simpler. It doesn't get any simpler than this.
Yeah, so I do a lot of coaching.
Yeah.
And I always, I think I mentioned to you before that I think all good leaders are readers, right? So you have to learn from other people.
Right.
Otherwise, you spend your whole life making the same mistakes that other people made.
Sure.
So because some of the people that I coach don't like to read, I thought, well, I need to make it simple, right?
Yeah.
So that you can pick it up in the morning and read one idea as an example. Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you read one, close it, and put it away, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this giant commitment where I have to take, 2 hours and get a glass of wine and go out on the back deck. You can learn in the morning just as a great idea before you go off to work.
Yeah, yeah. And are they as you said earlier, they're not consecutive. I mean, you've got to do all of these things.
Yeah, I don't think that you can skip steps. There are things like, it depends what you're not doing with your folks. I've coached people that, were very smart, understood the business. They really understood how to crunch numbers, but they'd come in every day in a bad mood. Well, if you're in a bad mood in the office and you're in charge, everybody's in a bad mood. But they didn't recognize that, right? So if you do everything else right, you got 100 right, but you come in and you're in a bad mood every day, you're probably not doing a very good job.
Right,
so
exactly.
What I tell people is you can't skip around and say, I'm a pretty good parent, I just forget to feed my kids.
Right.
You can't, all the steps matter,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's interesting you say this about being a parent because there are so many things that go into leading people. And we're going to have to take a quick break, but I do want to touch on this a little bit. People think that, because you're a brigadier general, retired, or you were an executive at a pharmaceutical company or president of Spencer Ryan, you're also a dad, you're a grandfather, you're a good friend, not so great golfer.
Marginal golfer.
Marginal golfer. But it's all encompassing. It's the way you live your life, and you mentioned it a few minutes ago. If you come into the office in a crappy mood or a bad mood, it's going to carry over from home or vice versa, right?
Absolutely. People think they are in the office somebody different than they are in their life.
Yeah.
But our personality is our personality. The way we deal with people is pretty consistent.
Right.
And I often find when I'm coaching people, if you can improve how they interact, how they communicate with people, that they go home and they realize that, wow, I'm doing the same thing to my spouse
exactly.
that I'm doing with my employees. Maybe I ought to adjust that a little bit.
Great thought. All right, we're going to have to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back with retired Brigadier General John DiNapoli on Veterans Day here to talk more about 101 leadership ideas. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
In our knowledge and our experience, we try to settle cases when we can, but we zealously advocate for our clients at trial as experienced and successful litigators. If you need help on any of these family life issues, please call us for an appointment at 215-542-2105 or check us out on our website at www.shemtablaw.com.
So, I got this new family, and I don't know what it is about this one, but she can't seem to put down that toy all day long. Tap, 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 tap. Oh, and she even talks to it. She talks to that more than she talks to him. What's up, bro? Nice shirt. Who's she talking to? Her mom? She talks to her mom a lot.
Welcome back to Rainmakers Roundup. I'm your host, Mark Iorio. I'm with retired Brigadier General John DiNapoli. We're talking about Brigadier General's book here. Here it is. It's up on the screen. So 101 leadership ideas. We were touching on it before the break, John, and it's kind of a simple way of, right, reading 101 ideas. Why'd you pick 101, by the way?
Yeah, I really didn't pick 101. I just started writing down ideas.
Okay.
And I thought it would end up somewhere around 100, but I got to 101, and 101 is actually a pretty cool number.
It is.
Because part of my service when I was on active duty, I was in the 101st Airborne Division.
Wow.
So I thought that's a good fit to stop at.
Yeah.
I probably could have plugged a few more.
No. This is perfect. This is actually great. So you went through and you started writing down ideas. The other thing about this is that in most of the chapters, you start out with a quote.
I do.
Right.
I'm a big quote guy.
Yeah, you're a quote guy. I was impressed that you knew the quote from Lou Holtz right off the top of your head, right?
I just think that quotes are a really great way to capture the essence of the thought that you're trying to convey to somebody.
Yeah. So you go through this and you've written 101 ideas. What's the whole idea behind, giving this to a leader and having him or her look at this and then say, I have to call Spencer Ryan. I've got to get them in here to help me because I know our leadership team, our executive team, the up and comers, the people in middle management, they're really lacking in the world of leadership. We need help.
Yes, sometimes companies recognize it and they know they need to improve their leadership. Sometimes they fool themselves that they're doing okay, so why would they spend money making people better? And very often you'll find that these leaders people should know that. And when you ask them, well, how would they know those things? Mm-hmm. Where do they get that knowledge? They say, well, they've worked for other people. But if you think about it, that's, I think, part of the value of the fact that I was in the military and in the Army, and then I was in the National Guard and in the civilian world at the same time, is that I've worked for a lot of people and I've had a lot of people work for me. And that's where you get examples of what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
Many of these people, I'll go to large companies, they've only worked for the one company for 20 years. And they've had maybe 2 or 3 bosses their entire life.
Yeah.
And they say, well, they should have found these answers somewhere.
Right.
But they've never seen an example of, good or great leadership or very poor leadership and what they should do differently. So sometimes the difficulty is getting companies to recognize the gap that their folks have, that they've never been trained, and what that training can do for them.
When you and I were talking the other day, I said to you that there are a couple of people in our lives, right, that you think of, and it almost chokes you up because you know that they really cared about you. Now, when you go and help people learn how to lead, is that something you can teach? I mean, really getting people to understand how to care for someone else. These two gentlemen that really helped mold me, craft my life when I was a young professional coming out of college, right? Cared enough to sit down and talk to me about the things that they thought I was doing incorrectly or needed coaching on. But how do you take someone who is a little bit more, say, recalcitrant about like the way they care for other people? Where do you start?
Yeah, so I think most of us want to do what's right. You want to take care of people, and a lot of times when people are treated poorly, they think they're doing it because it's going to improve the organization, but it very rarely does, right?
Yeah.
There's a great book by Simon Sinek called Leaders Eat Last.
Yeah.
And he talks about the fact that we all have an enzyme that we secrete when we help somebody else, when we coach somebody and they exceed the expectation,
Sure.
or when we go out and teach somebody a skill and their skill surpasses our ability to do it. And that release of those enzymes is what held mankind together and helped us to survive, right? Because we're not the fastest, we're not the strongest, we're not the, we don't have any of the qualities that you would think, well, why did we do so well in the broad scheme of evolution, right? And it's because we realize that together we could do a hell of a lot more than people individually. And the way you do that is you bring people along that need to be raised up. So I think when you show people that opportunity and the fact that it helps you be more successful, I mean, when you develop your people, the sky's the limit for you, right? Because everybody that's good in the organization wants to go work for the person that's developing their people, right? Because I could be next, right? He's getting everybody to the next level. If I go work with him, I could get to the next level, right? So all the good people want to gravitate to you. So you get rewarded as well. I don't think it's why you do it. I think you do it because it feels good to develop people.
Is that why you do it? You do it because you feel like, your passion is to help other people.
I don't think there's a better feeling in the world than watching. It's part of what I like about coaching, because you can see pretty quickly, within months, results of something that's changed and improved somebody's ability to deliver. Right? And I think that's really, it's gratifying.
It is.
That somebody's actually taken your ideas, put them to work, seen them work, and then they come back to you and say, hey, you helped me, you could really help this person as well.
Yeah, exactly. So share a case study with us. Tell us about a situation where you got into an organization and it was a little bit disjointed, right? Leadership team needed training, and you came in and it was sort of we'll call it a miraculous turnaround, and you felt those pangs of those enzymes really start to fire off in your body.
Yeah, so you kind of segment your career into different, like you were saying, along the way there are different people you say, well, this person had an impact on me. And sometimes it's somebody that you're working for, sometimes it's somebody that you're working with. So very early on, when I first started this business, I had a good friend that was running a business. He was a fraternity brother, actually, and he called me in. And I had a meeting with him to say, hey, I want to start a business. Well, his first advice was, hey, John, you're in your 50s. People in their 50s don't start businesses.
Thanks for the advice.
Because he had started his business in his 20s, So we got over that hurdle. And then he said, well, I'll introduce you to the folks in my organization, and you can try to sell them, because I'm not bringing you in, because, they'll think, oh, he brought him in as a shill,
Right, sure.
So I met with some of the senior folks in his organization, and they ended up calling me about a month later and saying, we have somebody we want you to coach. I said, okay. So we put together a coaching plan. We did a 360. We found out where some of his issues were. In fact, he is one of the persons I mentioned that used to come in and he was sometimes in a bad mood and had no recognition that impacted his business.
Sure.
So he went from his region being like 11 out of 14 in the company. Within a year, he was number 2 in the company in his region.
Wow.
So just by using the things that we had talked about. And I have now worked with him. He's since left the company, which I had to take some heat from my fraternity brother. Said, oh, great, I get you to coach people, and then they leave the company. Maybe I should have you coach everybody, and I'll have an empty company. But, he was ready to move up, and they didn't have an opportunity for him to move up. So, it ended up working out well for everybody. But I have since worked with him in his new company with multiple of his managers, right? Because when they recognize, hey, he helped me get to the next level, he could help somebody else get to the next level. And it not just helped him, but it drove his business so that, the company was actually more successful.
That's cool. That's great. You do a lot of speaking engagements too. I mean, there's, we had a situation where we had you, retired Colonel John Church, and retired Naval Commander Rick.
I forget Rick's last name.
Yeah, so do I. So, but that's okay.
We should have reviewed.
We should have reviewed. That's okay. But Anyway, we talked about leadership from the battlefield to the boardroom, but what was cool about that is that we were in front of a lot of people. You love being in front of a lot of people and talking about leadership.
I think it's a chance to impact more folks quickly,
Yeah.
right? In a 45-minute or 60-minute session, you can impact people and give them, they don't hang on every word and remember everything that you said, but they take away a few pearls,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if you could take away a few pearls every day, think of how much better you'll be as a leader, as a manager at the end of a month, at the end of a year,
Yeah.
right? So I love that they can take that away, and you always get questions at the end, and you know which pieces of the discussion had an impact on people and how it impacted them. So
Yeah.
I just find that a very invigorating way to impact a large group and give them an opportunity to elevate. And often it's not. I find myself, when I sit in a lot of those speeches, if I listen to a speech on leadership, I know most of the things I should be doing, but sometimes you get away from them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what you need is to be reinforced to say, maybe I am not recognizing people often enough when they're doing good things.
Sure.
Or maybe I'm not pressing people to go take time off so that they can recharge their battery.
Yeah.
Or I'm not taking time off and they're watching me, so they think the right thing to do is to keep running
working,
at
yeah.
high speed, right?
Yeah.
So I think it reinforces very often the things we already know.
Yeah, great, cool. Where do you find inspiration? Where does that come from?
As you said, there's people in your life that you reach back for. For me, early on, it's your parents, right?
Yeah, of course,
They
yeah.
kind of set the groundwork for where your value system is. And then when I got to high school, I wrestled for a coach who was pretty successful in the South Jersey area. He had ended up winning 400 some matches, but along the way, he was hitting milestones. And he had a way of, he was always talking about the former people that wrestled for him. And I used to think, I want to be one of those guys that he's talking about someday,
Yeah.
So it made me realize that one person can really have an impact on your life.
Sure.
And each time I look at chunks of my career, when I first went in the military, I had a colonel that gravitated towards and learned a lot about. When I was leaving the military, I had another colonel that tried to convince me to stay in. And he had a lot of wise things to say that I didn't recognize at the time.
Sure.
So each level, I had a very good district manager when I first started in the pharmaceutical industry. So those people, I think, inspire you to try to be like them, right? And to give back, to pay it forward, because somebody helped you get up to the next level.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thanks for everything. Thanks for serving our country. Happy Veterans Day, right?
Well, thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the opportunity to come in.
You're welcome. Great pleasure. Tell everyone how to get in touch with Spencer Ryan and you, please.
John DiNapoli, you can reach me at spencer-ryan.com. You can find information about what we do and what our services are, and you can find the book just about on any of the services that sell books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, thrift books, just about everywhere you look, you can find it. So hopefully you'll take a look and find some pearls.
All right, great stuff. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. Don't forget, 101 Leadership Ideas by Brigadier General retired John DiNapoli. Have a great week, everyone. Be safe, and we'll see you next time on Rainmakers Roundup.